Hello and a massive welcomes to our Facebook Live. We are absolutely thrilled to have an incredible guest, a great friend of mine. We have Paloma Forde, who is going to be talking to us on how early intervention can change dyslexic lives. Now, Paloma is doing some phenomenal work in the dyslexia world. And I would, before I kind of bring Paloma on for everyone to enjoy this Facebook Live, if you have a question during our conversation, then please do pop it into the chat. And as always, if you can like and share this video, that would be absolutely amazing, because it would just literally gets out to our dyslexic community. So sit back and enjoy an incredible talk. So I would love to introduce Paloma to you. So what are you going to get from this Facebook Live? So we'd love you to join us. We're going to be speaking to Paloma Forde. We're also going to be talking about the early diagnosis around this. But before Paloma, a massive welcome to yourself. Before I allow you to kind of speak to our guests, I'd just like to mention Paloma Forde is the creative powerhouse behind Screening for Dyslexia and a leading expert in the SEN. She's a former winner of the Theopathetas Small Business Sunday, my favorite dragon. I just want to add that side of it, and the International Dyslexia Conference, National Dyslexia Show. She provides screening, specialized tuition, assessments, workshops, and webinars to support the parents and children with dyslexia, and is an educational expert. Paloma, I hope I did you justice with just a small introduction. Paloma, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be doing a Facebook Live, so thanks a lot.
You're most welcome. Paloma, I know I've given you just a brief introduction in that sense, and I hope I didn't steal too much away from yourself. But could you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe how you got into this kind of industry? That'd be amazing.
Yes. So I'm very lucky, because when I was way back when I was 16 years old, during a lesson, we were told that we had to do work experience. So, when in secondary schools. And I remember the teacher at the time saying to me, she kept looking at me and giving me this very strange stare. And she said, right, well, Paloma, she went, I just can't see you working in an office. So I'm going to send you to a school where they've got children with special needs. And I went, okay, that sounds good. And fast forward however many weeks, I went into this school. It was a local school. I was there for 2 hours. And I remember running home and literally going in, telling my parents, that is what I need to do. I want to work with children with additional needs at the age of 16. So I was very lucky. And then worked everything to obviously get my qualifications, did my teaching, did my 2 years mainstream, and then very lucky got a job in a special needs school, and the rest was history, really. So my whole career path has kind of gone down the SEN route. But I'd say probably about 15 years ago, when I started teaching, we didn't really understand, we didn't even know what dyslexia was. We didn't, probably like yourself, all those years ago. So then I got real interest in it. So that was the journey where I am here now. So X amount, I'm celebrating 25 years in the teaching this year.
Well, congratulations, and what you like I mentioned about what you're giving back to the community is absolutely priceless. And our paths have crossed through onto LinkedIn, and I've seen the incredible work that you've done. And I was very, very lucky to hear your talk at the recent Dyslexia show, which was absolutely phenomenal. A packed seminar, and it was really really fantastic. And what I loved about that is just your sheer passion and knowledge. There's one thing to absorb the knowledge and be able to relay it, but it's that passion behind it. And I guess, and you touched on that as well, the fact that you knew at 16 that that's what you wanted to do going forward. And so if we go back to kind of early intervention, how important do you feel that is?
It's so important. Anyone who knows me or follows me on social media, I'm literally screaming and shouting it most weeks. And the main reason is I still think, even in this day and age, there is massive confusion about the difference between having a screening and having a full diagnostic assessment. So if I had £1 for any time anyone asked me that, I think I'd be a millionaire by now. And I think that's where the problem lies, because a lot of schools are communicating, not all schools, are communicating to parents that there's nothing that we can do until your child is 8. Which is simply not true, because I've got a Facebook, I've obviously got my Facebook page, but I've actually got a community dyslexia support group, which has got quite a few lovely parents on there. And I was actually asking them this weekend, because I knew I was doing this interview, and I said, please, can you tell me how old your child was when you first had that niggle? And I must have had a good hit actually on Facebook with the algorithms, because everybody was jumping on it. So I had a really good reach, 95 comments, and I'd say the average age was about 3.5 that parents knew. But you can actually, and I think that's the problem, because schools just think we can't do anything until the child's 8, because that's when you're going to get a diagnosis. Where actually, if you're spotting these signs and you're seeing those signs really early, and it is a gut instinct. I've always said, like when I was a Senko for many years, I used to say to teachers, if you have a niggle, you must tell me, because if you don't voice it, there's nothing anyone can do. So it's really vital.
And thank you so much for sharing that. And it is, you know, you mentioned that parents had that feeling at the age of 3, and if you have that feeling at 3, and then you think to yourself, well, the state says, I guess, that I need to, you know, statistics say that I need to wait until 8 years old. That's a long time to have that as a parent, to have that feeling of thinking, because all you want to do is to help and support your child. But that's
exactly.
that's almost like what. Do you? I mean, I'm sorry if I put you on the spot in this, but do they know why they think it's 8 years old?
Oh, so yes, so that's another thing. So I'm not a formal assessor, by the way. A lot of people think that I do full diagnostics. I don't. I'm originally a qualified teacher in the field of SEN. I got my master's in SEN, which allowed me to do certain assessments, other like below an educational psychologist. So I could do some, but not the top ones, let's say. So I can't do a full diagnostic. And the full diagnostic assessments tend to they're all standardized scores, and which means they're being measured against other children of the same age, same cohort, and that's why it's typically around 8, because there has to be, like, and that's the other thing that teachers are saying, quite rightly so in many cases, they're saying it could be developmental. So I've sat in that meeting with parents with young children where we've had a concern, but we've said, and this is when I was working in a school, so we would say, we've got a concern, so we're going to screen. So we would screen in school, and then if a child came up with a high probability, we would then say to the parents, we're just going to assume that your child does have a specific learning difficulty, and because of that, we're going to put all the interventions in now, and do the right thing for your child. So that's best practice, but unfortunately, a lot of the time it's still not happening, which is why parents get very frustrated and then come to me screaming, going, what can I do? What can I do?
So you mentioned around the difference between screening and then actual full diagnosis, and then I guess, you know, for people that work in the field, you know, in the dyslexic kind of field, I guess, and or in the educational side of it, that I've you know, people have said to me before, what's the difference between a screening and a full diagnosis? But there are, you know, masses of difference. Do you think we need to do more to educate around the difference between the two? And do you feel that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I know, well, Matt Hancock at the moment is trying to really push for this universal screening, which I think is fantastic, as long as they do it at a younger age. I don't quite know the ins and outs of what age, but yeah, definitely, because a screening will give a probability rating, and it will say, and it can be as high as 95%. So it can be as low as 10. And if you're looking at a child's profile, literally you can see the strengths and weaknesses, and you've got a 95% probability, you're not really going to ignore that, are you? You've got to just put in the right interventions. And that's also the other thing I think, teachers need a lot of training, is what does that intervention actually look like? What is that? What does it mean? What is that? So for me, the difference, again, it's two things. I always say, in a good setting, it's having adjustments. So like I mean, I know you're working on the other side of it with adjustments in the workplace, which is really important for adults in this day and age. I see it a lot in LinkedIn, but it's actually making the right adjustments when the children are really young as well. Something as simple as not having a whiteboard, having a yellow background, making conscious effort to the size of the fonts and what type of fonts, where a child sits in the classroom, not letting them copy from the board, giving them, pictures to, for sequences in story, loads and loads of things. There's tons you can do.
Absolutely. And I think it's just trying to understand how, again, how you can get the best, out of the child, and the child can learn within ease, really, isn't it? Because I guess, the mainstream school is kind of set up in a way that, we have to kind of learn in certain lessons in a certain way. And it's not until you're able to kind of understand that actually I can't learn in that way. And then you have to learn, in a different way. But sometimes that process can take a long process, and it can really knock someone's confidence, couldn't it? Because I guess, you have this long duration sometimes where you think, well, actually, I just don't get it. I mean, I know personally from my own experience, and it's trying to capture that early, isn't it?
It's capturing it early, and that's the difference between an adjustment and an intervention. So I totally agree. So let's picture the scene where you've got, there were 30 children in a class, and you're sitting in your class, and you're sitting there thinking, I'm not really processing this, or I'm not quite getting it. So that's when the adjustments need to be made within the classroom to make it more accessible for the child who is dyslexic, or we suspect is dyslexic. And then the interventions are, again, good practices when you're actually taking a child out, putting them in groups, or doing one-to-one work, and you're actually putting an intervention in place. And in this day and age, there are so many different companies that are providing actual interventions. There's a lot of computerized stuff. There's the old-fashioned stuff like toe by toe, but they've all got great success rates. But you've just got to get in there really early and just start really early.
Absolutely. Paloma, we're not. I've just had a question through, and which from Karen. I just thought I'd just ask if that's okay with yourself. Karen's asked, what phonics schemes are most helpful for diagnosed dyslexics?
That's a good question. See, the one that I use, the scheme that I use, and I've used for years, and I use now to teach my students, is called Alpha to Omega. It's called the Alpha to Omega program, and it's a book. And I just literally, it's multisensory. It's got 3 stages, and you can literally use it from children who are learning the alphabet right through to teenagers. So I've used it across the whole board. So that's my favourite one that I use. But with that, a lot of I know a lot of primary schools have they do the reading eggs, and I can't think of the alphabet one, the phonics one, which is it's got the multisensory. Karen will probably know what it is. Can't think of it for the life of me. But I use a different specialised program, but it's not expensive. You can buy the book for like £20 on let's say a marketing site. Because one of the things I won't mention any names, but one of the most important things is, and I say it on every webinar, especially for the young children, and I've done this with 7-8-year-olds, there comes, and you can probably relate to this, there comes a time where a child is a certain age and there's the assumption that they've secured their alphabet. So just for example, I've got a friend who's I'm seeing a couple of extra kids at the moment, and I had a new child come to me recently, and they just assume that because he's at a certain age, he must know his alphabet. And lo and behold, when I just do a little test, it's like, oh no, we've got the LMNO. Remember the middle of the alphabet? It's like an LMNO. What's that? Sounds like a song. So we've been working on that. But one of the best ways to teach the alphabet for our lovely dyslexic students is actually to put it in a semicircular. Like a rainbow. So I always recommend, to have get wooden alphabet, upper and lowercase, and colour the vowels in because they're super important, and then visually to put it in a rainbow format. It really does work. It's like magic, and I don't know why, but it does. Visual.
That's wonderful. And Karen mentioned that her son was 9 years old, so I think what you mentioned would fit into that kind of category. Because
Yeah, alpha. She wanted to do alpha. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Ask Karen. Let's ask, because I can't see, because we're on the restream. I'd love to know if Karen, when she started to have her niggles, because I've been fascinated this weekend listening. One parent said 18 months. That was the youngest, and I was just like, that is
My goodness.
phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Please feel free if comment onto this thread if you do have a question for Paloma, and if you when did you first find signs for that child had signs of dyslexia? That would be really good. There's got another question on here. I think it's a little broad question, but it's a great question. It says, what are your views on it says, what are your views on beat dyslexia? Now, I think it's maybe do you have any kind of coping? I think this is a question. If not, please do reframe.
Beat Dyslexia is a program.
Yeah.
Yes. Beat. Now, that's one of the ones I've never used, but I'm on different websites. Different groups with Senkos and stuff, and I see it come up a lot. To be honest, they all have to have done their research before they're allowed to put the products out there, and they've all got really good success rates. When I say success, as in the key thing is you can't start anything unless you're going to commit. So there's no point in doing something for 2 weeks and go, we're too busy for this couple of weeks. It doesn't work like that. And Darren, you'll know that from when you were younger, because I'm always honest with the parents whose kids I teach, and I'm honest with the kids, and you will have to overlearn, and you have to keep going over and going over. But that's part of the commitment, I'm afraid.
It is, and I think it gets more trickier when you get older. I was diagnosed at the age of 36, so now that I use and I work in the world of tech and all of the different incredible things that are at the fingertips now for someone like myself with dyslexia and ADHD. However, there is still this element of me, I guess. I mean, at 36, I'm still trying to identify what dyslexia is to me, even though you have it all your life. But there are some kind of aspects of the dyslexia which I'm almost, because I've created my own kind of coping strategies before. I'm thinking it's harder for me to think, well, actually, I'm going to learn something else or use a certain assistive tech. Not saying that I shouldn't, but that for me is trying to retrain my brain at 36, 45 now, to do that it's sometimes a little bit more trickier. And that's, again, it might not be for other people, but that for me is a personal thing.
I find it staggering. I mean, one of my jobs, I'm very lucky because I get to do lots of different things. So I actually contracted to support adults at my local university who are on the autistic spectrum, but about 80% of those have dyslexia. And one of my students, who's just about hopefully going to finish her degree, she's only just been given, and she's third-year student, she's only just been given her paperwork to say that, her assessment, she's found out she's dyslexic about a month ago.
And it's such a journey, isn't it? Because even when you get that diagnosis, it's not kind of like a tick, that's it, everything's sorted. It's then the journey afterwards.
It is.
Throughout that, I just wanted to sorry, Paloma, please go on.
No,
mention that Karen's son was before school, and another view, Trish, her daughter was about 2.5. So that goes back to when you mentioned about that niggle of when did you feel those thoughts. And I guess you just kind of know, and it is very difficult in schools when you send your child off to school and you know that they're struggling. That must be a very emotional thing on both sides, really.
I think it really is, and I think we've got to, as educators, really start listening much more to parents. And when the special educational needs code of practice got revamped back in 2014, when they did this massive change, one of the biggest things they changed was actually giving parents a bigger voice. And I still think a lot of parents don't realise that they've actually got a lot more power in their say, and I think we just need to be listening to them, because how often is it when we get a niggle, there's a reason, isn't there? That's that subconscious, something's not quite right, and actually we do need to listen to that and act upon it. And I feel terribly sad that parents are having, they'll use the terminology, I'm fighting the school to get the help that my child needs.
I've heard that phrase, and you must have heard it in abundance. I've heard that phrase so many times, and it's such an emotional thing for someone to say, because it actually does feel like a fight. They're just trying to help their child, to have an education and learn. But what are the kind of the things that, I mean, I just what you've heard from other conversations had. What are the kind of the, if you were we were talking to a parent now, what the kind of first step would be? And we mentioned about kind of you get that kind of that niggling kind of feeling. Would it be to go to the school, or, I mean, this is just from maybe some of the conversations and experience that you've heard?
Yeah, so as soon as you've got a niggle, I always call them the front line. So the classroom teacher is the front line. They are the person that is teaching your child. So rather than run off to the Senko, you need to have a conversation and have a meeting with the class teacher. I always say, one of my tips, sorry, I'm in my husband's office, is a great tip. If you've got a niggle and you have that first meeting, you need to get a book, a notebook, and that becomes your little Bible, your go-to, because you will be starting a journey from that first niggle and need to have everything recorded. What you're wanting to do is say what your concerns are, but find out if they are the same concerns that the teacher's seeing. Often, as we know, 30 kids in the class, especially if the child is lovely and quiet and wonderful and doesn't really say boo to a goose, the teacher might not have noticed the same things from home, in which case I always say to parents, just ask them if they can just do a couple of observations, just say on a post-it note or do something. But after that, then it's really, once you find out what they're saying, if they're in agreement, brilliant, then go and have a conversation then with the Senko. But if they're not sure, that's when you'd want to do the observations. But yeah, the first port of call is having that conversation. But also I say to parents, because where they're getting frustrated, waiting, that's where you can do your own things yourself. So if you wanted to sit and commit to those 10-15 minutes a day, because you can't wait for the school to sit there and do nothing, just do things on your own. That's what I'm saying. There's loads of, if you Google and write, dyslexia interventions, there are so many ideas and apps and all sorts now. But so I would actually just start doing something myself at the same time.
Incredible tips. And I remember, you're absolutely right about keeping that diary, because I can imagine there'll be lots and lots of meetings, and maybe, I'm not saying pour them to task in any way, shape, or form, but I guess if you've written down actually the next step, you've agreed the next step or something, that's what's going to happen, then you've got it written down, and then it gives them them guidance and you guidance of the journey that you want to to go on.
Exactly. So you start the next meeting and you say, "Oh, I'm great. Thanks for meeting me." You go in for the same book and you say, "Last time I met you 6 weeks ago, you said you were going to do that, and that. Just checking how's it going." And you've got it on paper. And then and then don't ever be afraid to repeat back and review at the meeting. So I would often say to parents, then you say at the end, "Okay, so just want to clarify that we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you've agreed to do that, and that. And can we meet again in another 6 weeks or 4?" So you're making that stepping stone. And I've sat in hundreds of meetings over my career, and the parents that came with a notepad and pen, I respected that. I thought, yeah, they mean business. Brilliant, good on them. So yeah, they're the ones that will get stuff done.
But that's incredible, and I guess we, when we come to these meetings, we want to be led, I guess, by the educator. And that's absolutely fine. They do a phenomenal job in that sense. But I guess it's taking the little bit of power yourself, isn't it? And then going, actually, I respect that the information you're going to give me, but ultimately I need to record this to then take that through. And it's an incredibly powerful thing to be able to do. And this is, I guess, it's just like taking notes at a meeting, or just but it's
also the most successful cases I have ever been a part of, ever seen, or ever been on a journey. And this is another tip for parents: you can be the most angry and frustrated person or parent on the planet. Do not walk into a meeting with that anger and that frustration. It's just going to put barriers up. Where it works successfully, even if you are feeling frustrated, it's when you're all working together. So, it's things like saying things at the meeting. Look, I just want to make sure that I want the best outcome for my child. And you're using terminology that's showing them, I just want the best outcome. I want to work with you at the school. Tell us what we can do to help. It's that's when it's successful meetings, and you're coming out and you're going. And in fact, even better than that, we used to do as good practice, if it was appropriate. So we would invite the child in. So imagine you, Darren, all those years ago, and we would say, right, little Billy, come in. And then you'd sit there, and he'd sit there going, oh my gosh, I've got my parents, I've got my teacher here, and there's another lady who I don't know. And we'd be like, right, we've all been talking about ways how to help you, because we know that you're finding writing a bit tricky. So we're thinking about, and I did this about 1.5 years ago, so we're talking about getting you a laptop and getting you to touch type. And this kid was 8. And we said, how do you feel about that? Oh yeah, that would be great. And you're getting everyone involved, and it was just so successful.
That's really magical. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that. Paloma, I've got another question, if that's okay.
No, fine.
Karen's asked that her son's school wants to train someone up to do some interventions with her son. She's asked, do you know what training providers would you recommend so that the intervention will have an impact? Now, this is probably maybe something you take offline, or unless you do have some kind of ideas around this. So I'll just read it again. So Karen's asked her son's school wants to train someone up to do some interventions with her son. What training providers would you recommend so that the intervention will have an impact?
Me.
There we go. Karen, please go.
Karen, I can do that. That's what I do. So the school's going to arrange the training, but Karen wants to kind of steer them in the right way.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. Karen has asked that her son's school, they want to train someone up to do the interventions, but they just want to make sure that they find the right person. So, but Karen, please.
So again, I mean, you can go on you can Google it. You can go on to if you just Google dyslexia training, there's all sorts. I do provide dyslexia training. I'm on mycpdgroup.com, so you're free to join that, and there's stuff on there. But again, if they wanted to buy in and get a physical human being in, someone locally, then you would the school probably would just have to advertise that locally, and they would probably get a dyslexia specialist who might come in and do a few sessions, if that makes sense. I'm just thinking, where I live in Surrey, I know that I've got a colleague who works at the university, but she's actually a dyslexia assessor as well. So she's got her details on a local website, so you could always do it that way. So it's either or.
No, and Karen, I hope that that helped. And I'm sure if you do have any more questions for Paloma, I'm sure she wouldn't mind you contacting her via the social channels as well. So with the early intervention, which we know is crucial, it's so powerful, and I guess there are times when people get kind of missed through the the educational system. Me being one of them, through the educational system. But I think it's just I've always thought to myself that full journey, from sort of if we took the UK, kind of primary school, secondary school, college, university, then the workplace. And I feel that, there are a few kind of blips in the way of gaps within, the support that gives. But and I'm not too sure when we'll get to that full kind of stage where we were able to kind of support, but it would be, you know, I guess truly incredible if we were able to kind of support a child through that entire journey, so that there wasn't a kind of a miss. So then when you get primary school, secondary school, and then maybe college, it's, you know, the support isn't there, and university, and then the workplace. And I guess it's trying to line everything up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's literally catching it early. You're relying on, you're basically relying in the early years, because often parents won't see it themselves. That's just the most, some parents don't see it. So you're relying on early year settings to kind of spot stuff, and actually just provide something like, so I'm thinking early signs. So one of the common early signs for young children is they'll find it really hard to pick up on rhymes. So that's why often on the screenings they will look at rhyming words and nursery rhymes. So if you know that a child is struggling but continues to struggle, because that's the big problem, it's recognizing, okay, so lots of children, for example, get their words. So I might say flutterby, flutterby, flutterby when I'm 3, but if I'm still saying flutterby a year later, you know, alarm bells should be ringing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, and then I would break it down in the and say, okay, so this child is really struggling with rhymes. Let's build that up now, and in their daily activities, we're going to work. Somebody's going to work with this child every day, and we're just going to focus on rhymes, and we're just going to sing rhymes and this, that, and the other. So that's what I mean by intervention. Yeah, you're right. It's just getting it really early on, and then following it through, hoping by the time they go to primary that if the child still hasn't been diagnosed, obviously before they're 8, that the reception teacher, the year 1, the year 2, and they're told, this is what we used to say in our schools, which is good practice, we're assuming that they are dyslexic, so we're just going to treat them as though they have dyslexia. It's as easy, and if you do that, because all the interventions, the strategies that I was off telling my staff to do was no different. Had a full diagnostic assessment, because when you've got your full diagnostic assessment and it's saying, right, your child has dyslexia, these are the next steps, this, and this. Well, good practices, we were already doing that actually. So we've got it in black and white now, but actually we were doing it 3 years ago. Brilliant. So that child's got a head start. That's what it means.
Absolutely. Paloma, we're coming to the end of our Facebook Live. I could talk to you all evening. You're giving so many golden tips away. Paloma, how can if people wanted to get in contact with yourself, how would they be able to get in contact?
Oh, easy. Well, Google me. If you Google Paloma Forde, I'm quite high up there now. I think you can find me. So screening and then the number 4 dyslexia. So if you just do screening for dyslexia, you'll find me. I'm Paloma Forde. Don't forget to put the E on the end. I've got the Irish version. But yeah, or screeningfordyslexia@gmail.com. So you can, but head to my website and then you can just contact me. Cool.
And you mentioned as well that you have a Facebook group.
So I've got a UK. So I've got dyslexia. I've got my Facebook page, which is Screening for Dyslexia, and then linked to that, I've got. If you go onto Facebook and look for Dyslexia UK support group, you'll see my big head on there with my yellow, my obligatory yellow. Just join the Facebook. It's a really lovely group. I think it's about 4,000 parents on there at the moment, so the numbers are quite high. And can I say that I'm telling them about the early years webinar that's in, because I'm in September. So if you're interested in early years, or you need to send some teachers in the early years or childminders, so it's dyslexia from identification to intervention, and it's dyslexia in the early years, and that's in September. I think it's the 6th or 7th, I don't know, but again, it's all on my Facebook page. And we all need to be shouting it from the, just keep telling people we can detect it early, because you can.
Absolutely, and we will do is Succeed. You know, we'll showcase the incredible work, continue to showcase the incredible work that you're doing. You know, we're building a fantastic community, and it's, you know, it's fantastic having you part of that. You're doing some phenomenal work. So please, you know, please get in touch with Paloma, join the Facebook group. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's a support network right there, isn't it?
Get asked lots, and that's what I mean. At the weekend, I just have to go, can you help me, everyone? I want to ask a question, and everyone jumps on it. So they're all really lovely. They're very helpful on there to me. They're very good. Yeah, any advice, any questions, frustrations, just ping it, question on there, and everyone jumps on it. So it's a lovely community.
Fantastic. Paloma, it's been absolutely incredible having you on our Facebook Live. Thank you so much for taking part in this. And thank you so much again for everyone that's watched this either live or on the replay. We'll be back very soon with more incredible guests like Paloma. Take care. Have a fantastic evening.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's been great. Thanks, Darren. Bye.
No problem. Take care. Cheers.
Bye. 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 Thanks a lot.